Good evening, folks, and welcome back to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm glad to be back here now in 2023. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys. We haven't done a show since last year when we did kind of a wrap-up show with some racing news, but this is the first ARCA Racing Podcast since October of last year. So, yeah, it's definitely been a while since we've done one of these. A little bit of a different ARCA Racing podcast today. However, we are not previewing any races nor reviewing any races. However, we are previewing the upcoming Daytona Test. Yes, ARCA Racing still does the annual Daytona Test, even though NASCAR all bet for the next-gen car. Sorry if you guys hear some barking upstairs. My brother just came in with his dog, so sometimes the dogs like to fight. So if you hear some barking, apologize in advance. You can hear him probably there. Apologize in advance. But yeah, we'll be previewing the Daytona ARCA Test. Unfortunately, will not be televised. I know we all hate that, but obviously follow your favorite ARCA teams on Twitter, ARCA teams on Facebook to get updates, and obviously arcaracing.com for the live stream of practice results. We'll get through our little intro that we always do at the beginning of our podcasts, and then we will jump right into the entry list, followed by some 2023 news. We have some big news. A former sitcom star, one of my favorite sitcom stars when I was a kid, is now entering ARCA, and I'm excited to talk about him a little bit later in the show. So you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media at Start and Park Car, Colby Evans. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are over 800 subs now, less than 200 away from the magic 1,000. Can't thank you guys enough for the continued support. Brock Beard, NASCAR Man, give them support too. They're good friends of the show. Check out theracingexperts.com for all ARCA and NASCAR content. That is my media affiliation, and they are great friends also of this channel. So let's get right into it, guys. The Daytona ARCA Test, one of my favorite times of the year. I miss NASCAR testing. I miss NASCAR preseason thunder. They brought it back for the next gen, but mainly just to do testing, not because they wanted to bring back testing full time. It was always one of my favorite parts of the year because I always felt like, you had the off season, but you didn't really have to wait all the way until February. You had that little bit that you could look forward to in January, which got you pumped. It got you ready for speed weeks coming up. And I really hate that they went and did away with it, but I'm glad that ARCA, even all this time later, is still doing it. And not only are they still doing it, the attention for it is huge. The entry list is huge. And we got it pulled up right now. We're going to be going through some teams might only be bringing a couple cars. We have a lot of drivers to go through. So I got the entry list pulled up right here. And, we're going to be going through all these cars. First up, we got Jake Finch with the number 1, obviously Phoenix Racing. Number 2, Nick Sanchez returns to Rev Racing. But, of course, this is just for the Daytona Test, obviously to get him some more laps for the upcoming truck race at Daytona. Not sure if he's going to be running the actual ARCA race. But again, more laps around Daytona is definitely good experience for this young rookie, as I believe he's only had 2 starts at Daytona under his belt. Of course, we got Willie Mullins. Mullins Racing bringing a lot of cars, not a lot of drivers, I meant. Willie Mullins, obviously, in his 3-car Ford. And then we got a Chevrolet, which will have drivers Braden Laster, Kayla Searles, Landon Huffman, Mario Hart. Yes, that's actually a real name driving, Mario Hart. That's awesome. Landon Pembleton, everyone's favorite, Brad Perez, and Chase Janes, who made a couple of starts for G2G last year. So those will be the drivers for Mullins Racing. Great to see Mullins Racing opening up the Daytona Test to a lot of different drivers. Obviously, like I said, you got Brayton Laster, who's really trying to get his name into the big ranks of ARCA Racing. Kayla Searles, unknown. But to me, at least, she might be known to you guys, but it's good to see her getting some laps around Daytona. Obviously, Landon Huffman, we all know who he is, the 2022 Hickory short track champion. Awesome to see him getting some laps. Mario Hart, just an awesome name. Landon Pembleton is honestly a little bit of a shocker because I kind of expected him to be with Venerini. So that is kind of a shocker to see him with Mullins. Not sure if that fell through or not, because I did hear a lot of rumblings that they might attempt a full season with Pembleton, but it looks like maybe those talks have fizzled out. And, of course, everyone's favorite, Brad Perez. It's always good to see him back. And, of course, Chase Janes. Dale Quarterly and C.W. Lemonine. I hope I didn't pronounce his name wrong, but I probably did. Those cars are coming from Bobby Gerhart Racing. Up next, we got the 6 car, Andres Perez de Lara, which probably again butchered his name, but not the best with pronunciation. And LeVar Scott will be piloting the 6 car for Rev Racing. I hope something actually turns into this for Andres, because he showed a lot of potential when driving for the DGR team last year in the West Series. A lot of potential for a kid who had never made really any starts in these kinds of cars. So really hope that this is not just him driving for Rev and actually turns into whether an East season or some main series starts, because I do believe Rev will still be involved in it. But yeah, so then moving on, we got the 8 of Sean Corr. It's always good to see Empire Racing. Every year we kind of go, we don't know whether Empire Racing is going to be back. Sometimes Empire Racing is back, sometimes it's not. But good to see Empire Racing still going another year. Sometimes, like I said, you get the rumors, is Empire Racing shutting down? Then they're not. Then they're at Daytona. Then they're not. So good to see them back for the Daytona Test once again. Ed Pompa for Andy Hillenberg in the 10. Amber Balkin, not in the 30, as we all and myself had predicted. She's actually going to be in the number 15 for Venerini. And quite ironic, she is announcing her 2023 plans tomorrow. So we will find out what Amber's plans are. And I would say more than likely it has something to do with the Venerini 15 car. Connor Mosak is in the 18. William Sawalich, probably again butchered his name. Sorry if I did. Is also in the 18. Those 2 guys will be piloting the 18. Interesting. William, obviously not old enough to do the actual Daytona race, but I like the fact that even though he's not old enough to run the actual Daytona race, he is able to run the Daytona Test. I like that. That being able to give a kid who might not be old enough to do the race, but he can still get in the car and get some laps and get some experience. That's what I really like about this Daytona Test. You don't have to be 18 to do it, and you can get some experience firsthand. I think that's very beneficial for a lot of these young kids looking to get full-time into either ARCA ranks or the upper ranks of NASCAR. Mosak is definitely an interesting name. With William only being able to do 13 races this season for ARCA, will we see then Connor piloting the other 7? Maybe not all the other 7 races, but that could give an inkling of who's going to drive that number 18 for the other 7 races, because that 18 car is going the full season, just with 2 different drivers. So they are going for an owner's championship once again. So after that, Jesse Love, of course. Jesse Love has been at the test the last couple years. Full-time driver for Venerini this season. Good to see him back in the 25 of Gus Dean, other Venerini entry. Likely we will see Gus running the Daytona race. He's either in the 55 or the 25. He'll be in some sort of Venerini car for Daytona as a good plate racer. Good to see Richmond Racing back. Tim Richmond in that team, likely with their old DGR car again. Next one's going to be pretty popular. Number 30 of Frankie Muniz. Yes, the number 30, Frankie Muniz, star of Malcom in the Middle. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but yeah, he'll be piloting the number 30. That is awesome. Just got to say right. Can't wait to talk about that in a second. But yeah, Frankie Muniz in the 30. He replaces Amber Balkin in the 30 from the previous season. Christian Rose will be in the 32. We'll go over that also in a little bit as well. He'll be driving the 32 full-time for AM Racing. Greg Van Alst in the number 35 for his own operation. Usually they run Fords, but at the plate tracks they run Chevrolets. Robbie Lyons, Matt Gould, Landon Lewis, and Amber Slagle will be running the number 42. Not sure if it's going to be different cars for Cook Racing Technology, so it's good to see Robbie Lyons back in a car. Matt Gould, who's obviously affiliated with Nice. Landon Lewis, who's obviously been a beast on the West Circuit. And Amber Slagle, who has worked for Cook Racing for quite some time. Good to see McClure Racing back with Jacob Perry. And then we got Emmerling Gase Motorsports from the Xfinity Series. They are going to be bringing an ARCA car with drivers Patrick Emmerling, Mike Policastro, hopefully I pronounced that right, Garrett Zacharias, and Joe Graff Jr. Now, that's kind of interesting. Joe Graff Jr., we did see that he was not returning to SS Greenlight Racing in 2023. So could we see Joe Graff maybe, is this a little bit of an inkling as to maybe what Joe Graff Jr.'s plans are for 2023, that he might be driving for Emmerling Gase, or is just this simply Joe Graf just wanted to get some laps in for fun at the Daytona Test. It could go either way because we don't have any real further information. We know Graf has plenty of sponsor dollars, so it's likely that it wouldn't shock me if it's maybe not full time, but we do know that Emerling Gase Motorsports in the Xfinity Series is running 2 cars. So it's possible that we could see Joe Graf in those cars maybe for a couple of races. Sorry if I'm coughing, guys. I'm still getting over a little bit of a cold. And we got the average winter energy, so I'm coughing a little bit. Apologize in advance for that. Continuing on down with the entry list, 55 of Tony Brideinger. We will also get into her announcement as well when we're done talking about the Daytona Test, but she will be back this season for Venerini, not on a full-time basis, but will be back either way. Hunter Deschantel, hopefully I pronounced that name correctly. Brother-in-law Motorsports, Brian Dowsett, who runs for FDNY in the Truck Series. He is bringing 2 ARCA cars for the test for himself. He'll be in the 75, and this other one for Hunter Deschantel. Stephen Lewis, kind of a new guy. I've never really heard of this guy before. He comes from Rand's Mill, New York, for his own team, and it's a Chevrolet with an Ilmore. Obviously, we know GMS Racing is not returning to the ARCA Series. This could possibly be one of their plate cars. I don't know for sure. No Dave Mader III, unfortunately, for Spraker Racing. Logan Misaraka, who's, you might follow her on Facebook, might follow her on Twitter. She's trying to get her, foot into the sport. A very, very lovely lady. And good to see her running the Daytona Test for Spraker Racing. Kimmel Racing will be running 2 cars, the 68 for Gage Rogers and the 69 for Scott Melton. Pizza Man Andy Jankowiak will be bringing a car for himself and Nick Anglace. So good to see some more people driving that car. Mandy Chick, of course, she's got to get approved for Daytona, so you got to bring the car down there to get approved. 75 of Brian Dozet, we already went over him. The 82 of Kevin Campbell. Now, that might be a name you guys definitely haven't heard in a while. Kevin Campbell ran in the mid-2010s for ARCA, doing some starting parks for his own team. Didn't really get off the ground, and then unfortunately I think he had a fire that destroyed his equipment. I'm not sure if that was him. I know a couple of ARCA teams definitely had fires that destroyed a lot of their equipment, but good to see Kevin Campbell back even at this stage. Driving a Chevrolet, the 82. 93 of Caleb Koster, that was announced a couple of weeks ago, teaming up to field the number 93 with, I forgot the name, but either way, they will be teaming up. Number 93, Jason Kitzmiller in the 97, obviously CR7 Motorsport. That's been a partnership now for the last couple of years, so it kind of makes sense that Jason would drive in the Daytona Test again just to get some laps ready for the upcoming race. Dale Shear, good to see old Dale Shear back. I thought he was out when the steel body era kind of ended. It pushed out guys like Basham, guys like Dale Shear, so it's good to see Dale back again with his own team. He'll be running the number 98. And then we got A.J. Moyer in the 06 for Peterson. Note, they are the only team right now listed with not an Ilmore engine, rather a D3, which I believe is a form of a legacy motor, which is a car that can barely push out about 170 average. Not really competitive, I would say. But, it's kind of the best that they can do. We do have a lot more drivers here listed for fast track racing. They just don't have numbers. That's kind of why they're at the bottom. The RTD program, which rewards 6 drivers, giving them a chance with Andy Hillenberg. That includes ARCA West champion Jake Drew, Billy Van Meter, Harley Jankowski, Leland Honeyman, John McKennedy, Lane Riggs, Christopher Martin Jr., and then these are not regulars: Christopher Martin Jr., Christopher Arthur, Christopher Tate, Miguel Holmes, Zoe Endenholm, and Cole Duncan. 61 drivers in total, I believe, spread across, 35 cars, 36 cars? So still a very, very hefty field for this year's Daytona ARCA Test. Obviously, the drill is no big packs. You won't see any big pack drafting at all. They won't allow that. But they will at least allow, I think, about packs up to about 5 or 6 cars. And then, of course, single car drafting in general as well. It does take place this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Friday, Practice starts at 10 and will go to 5. And then same thing the next day. Now, some teams will load up on day 1 because this is just a test to get ready for Daytona, make sure the equipment's working, make sure to get approved. So a lot of teams don't actually stay for day 2. Really, the only teams who brought multiple drivers, will actually probably stay till day 2, but maybe the teams only brought maybe 1 or 2 drivers will probably load up on day 1. I have seen that before because, they got the information they need. They got the testing done that they need. And now it's just time to go home and put on the finishing touches, put on the finishing touches for Daytona and, get the car ready. So that's kind of, like I said, 61 drivers, a huge field of drivers. Like the Daytona ARCA test is always something fun that we look forward to every year on the show. We will be doing a review episode. Don't go yet, though. We're not done yet. I was just, again, previewing the Daytona test. And we do have some news to also talk about. It was announced, this was about a week ago. For the people who don't know, over the offseason, for the people who don't remember, Rita Thomason, who drove the number 06 and 31 entry last year for a couple of races, she got married over the season to a fellow NASCAR crew member, Tim Goulet. So she now goes by Rita Goulet. Tim Goulet is a great friend of mine, so congratulations to them. And they will be running a part-time ARCA entry this season. Formerly Tim Goulet Enterprises, now rebranded as Rise Motorsports. They will be running part-time. Stephen Light, who you guys may know, he ran for Yates. He's ran for MBM. He's ran for JD. Stephen Light's been all over the place in NASCAR. So Stephen Light will also be running part-time for that team as well. They did not announce any races that they are scheduling to run. And, of course, you did not hear me talk about them for the Daytona test, so I don't believe they're going to be there as well. So good to see them expanding. Good to see them expanding. And, like I said, Rita, she definitely needs to get some more experience under her belt, and I hope that she can definitely improve herself over the course of this season. Some other announcements. Venturini's plans have been slowly falling into place. Obviously, we know Jesse Love will be running for the championship in the number 20 car, but some part-time cars entries, which is more Venturini was used to, have been announced. Connor Jones, as you guys remember, he drove the 15 and 25 and 55 entries part-time last year for Venturini. Will be back again this season in a 12-race effort that does include two other series races, one for East, one for West, and 10 main series division races, starting off at the combo race with the West Circuit at Phoenix, the East Dover race, Elko, Mid-Ohio, Iowa, Pocono, Lucas Oil, Watkins Glen, the combo race at Milwaukee, the combo race at Bristol, Salem, and then the season finale West race again at Phoenix as well. So good to see Connor Jones back. He did okay. I would say he exceeded my expectations last year driving for Venturini. So it's good to see him back. Good to see him getting some more experience. It just sucks, that, these kids, they just can't find the funding for a full season. But it's good to see that he'll be back for at least 10 races in the main circuit, at least this season. Other announcements we got. Christian Rose, as we mentioned on the Daytona test, AM Racing did announce a full-time ARCA car a couple of weeks ago, and we now have confirmation of the driver, Christian Rose, who formerly drove for the 42 of Cook Racing Technologies. Didn't really impress me. I was actually quite critical on him. He tore up a lot of equipment, didn't run very well, and I'll say definitely every week I was pretty hard on him, and I think it was rightfully so for what that equipment was capable of. I didn't see what I thought really he should be capable of, and I think I'm not going to deny his talents, but at the same time, I want to see more performance. I want to see less crashes, but at the end of the day, he can only do what he can do best. So. Good to see him running for the championship. Obviously, I don't think he'll necessarily be a championship contender, but he'll probably be contending right up there with Muniz for about second place, I could see. Yeah, everybody's already calling it early that Jesse Love is just going to walk away with the championship. I don't know if I would call that 100% just yet. Like I said, Van Alst has really upgraded his equipment. I think Van Alst could shock some people, but I know a lot of people are already painting Venerini as winning the Drivers' Championship. Some other news we got also. Tony Brideinger, she actually announced today that she will be running 11 races for Venerini as well. Not back on a full-time basis, unfortunately, but still back in general. She will be running 11 races. I do believe they are all main series division races, which will include Daytona, the Phoenix Combo race, Talladega. So it looks like she will be running the Dover East race, both Kansas races, Charlotte, Iowa, Lucas Oil Raceway, and then the West Series finale at Phoenix. So she's kind of doing the same schedule in some ways as Connor Jones is, just on some of the more bigger tracks. And I understand that because you look at her results from last season, her results on the short tracks like in Elko, like a Berlin, were not very good. So I can understand maybe why she would want to focus more on the bigger tracks. Maybe they just fit her better. So either way, it's good to see Tony back. And I would imagine that, you have Connor, who more than likely will be in the 25 part-time, and Amber maybe in the 15 part-time. I would have to imagine that maybe Amber fills out the rest of the year. Maybe I could see Amber driving maybe 5 races in the 25 and another 6 in the 15. I could see that happening as well. But we don't know her plans yet. And then, of course, the biggest news of today for ARCA, I'm sure you guys saw it over on TMZ, posted everywhere. You saw his personal tweet. Yes, Malcom in the middle himself, Frankie Muniz, been a long-time racer, will be running full-time in the number 30 for Rhett Jones Racing. I think that is awesome. Having a guy like that who has such a passion for motorsports, really famous TV star. For anyone who hasn't watched Malcom in the Middle, man, it was a great TV show from, I think it was 2000 to 2006 is when that show ran, and it was very entertaining. Still got to say my favorite character on the show was Dewey, not Malcom himself. That's just my personal opinion. I was always a fan of Dewey, but good to see Frankie, man. He looks genuinely just excited for this opportunity, and I think it's really telling, and I think it's such a great story that NASCAR man brought up, the fact that he rode in the pace car for the 2001 Daytona 500. He was one of the last people, actually, I believe they said maybe one of the last 10 people to actually say something to Dale Earnhardt on his last race. Like that right there, man, just really sinks it in. And the fact that he's going to be driving the same chassis, CGR 005, that was built in 1999. The car that Sterling Marlin drove in that infamous 2001 Daytona 500, Frankie will be driving that same exact chassis. Like, it's so eerie, but so cool at the same time. And I wonder, does Frankie even know that? Does Frankie even know that he's driving such a legendary chassis that has so much regards and comparisons to when he was there back in 2001, man? Like, that is such a cool story, man. And I really hope someone brings it up to him. I hope he's like, wait, I'm driving this car? No, I really hope he knows what car he's driving, because I think that's one of the coolest stories going around Daytona, how this car that is over 23 years old is still in service and running at a high level. My expectations for him, this guy's not a rookie. He's been racing for a long time on a very competitive level in late models. So I'm not saying that this guy's just going to crash a bunch. I think he's going to shock some people. We know Rhett Jones, they don't necessarily have the equipment to run on a level with a Rev, with a JGR, with and a Venerini. But I definitely think you will see him competing for top fives for sure. And who knows, maybe one race they will find that setup and they will squeak out that magic win. And I could see it happening. I really could see Frankie pulling off an upset win. Because you never know what could happen in these ARCA races. The leaders could crash out. And then Frankie just somehow comes out and wins. I don't think he's necessarily going to win the championship. Not at all. I with all due respect to Frankie, I don't see him winning the championship. But I definitely think a top 2 or top 3 finishing position in the points, because people realize there's actually a lot more people running full-time in ARCA this year than people realize. Jesse Love, Greg Van Alst, Frankie Muniz, Brad Smith, Mandy Chick, and I believe John Garrett, I think they said, and, maybe we'll get one more entry announced before the year starts. So that's still quite a few for ARCA standards, full-time drivers. And I definitely think a second or third place finishing position in ARCA points is not out of the realm of possibility for Frankie. I could definitely say that maybe the plate races might be a small struggle for him. I think the smaller tracks will probably suit him in the initial beginning a lot better. And I'm definitely curious to see what he does on the road courses. I think those will probably be the biggest test for him. But just having a guy like Frankie Muniz, man, ARCA, who would have thought in 2023 ARCA would be on TMZ? I would not have called that at all. But I think that's awesome that ARCA gets that type of exposure. And I swear to God, I know they're going to say it, but if we see a Daytona and Frankie's shooting the gap between two cars and we hear that joke, it's Malcom in the middle. I know they're going to go for it, but God, I don't want to hear that joke, but man, it would be something to see Frankie splitting two cars and they're saying, it's Malcom in the middle. Like God, that would be something. But yeah, so right now, that's kind of the big ARCA news. Obviously, we have the Daytona Test this weekend. We also got the race itself February 18th. Again, how ironic is that not only you have him driving the car that Marlon was driving, you have him in the Daytona 500 from 2001, and he's driving in the ARCA race that happened on the exact same day that infamous day happened 22 years ago. Like, it's so weird how this all manages to like, and they would say, well, goes around, somehow comes back together, and look where it is. It's back together somehow. And it's just weird, but I love it. I love the fact that ARCA is getting this kind of exposure. I absolutely love it, man. I know Malcom in the middle and then they crashed. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. If I was to say one thing to Frankie, it's hug the bottom and don't move off of it. That's been the one thing I've always, if I could say one thing to a rookie race car driver at Daytona, it's what I've always done in the PC games. I find that if you just stick your way to the bottom and commit to it, you will eventually find your way to the front. You might not lead the race, but you'll be at least about fourth or fifth. So if Frankie just stays on the bottom, I think he'll be just fine. But yeah, lots of news out for ARCA. We got, like I said, Amber Balcan's announcing her plans tomorrow, which I would more than expect to be announced with Venturini. So it looks like Venturini once again will only have one full-time driver, with probably drivers like Gus Dean, Amber Balcan, Connor Jones, and Tony Brideinger filling out the part-time cars. I would maybe expect a couple more drivers here and there. The 55, they did announce that the 15 and the 25, they will be full-time still. So those cars will be full-time, and the 55 will be also on a part-time basis. So obviously we still expect some more announcements coming. Sorry, guys, my allergies. We do expect some more driver announcements coming for Venturini Motorsports, but obviously that'll be for the foreseeable future. Right now, based off of the ARCA Test entry list, looks like we're in for a decent-sized field at Daytona. I would easily say we're looking about 38 cars. I've heard some people say 40. I've heard some people say as low as 35. But I'm going to meet that right in the middle, and I think we'll get a good 38 cars, which is a very, very solid field. And, we've all been very critical on the package. I think that was very noticeable from about 2019 to 2021, that the racing overall was not very good on the plate tracks. I think it was mostly in part due to the shorter fields. When you have the short fields of ARCA and you just don't have enough cars, you can't put on a good show. But 2022's plate races, both, in my opinion, were very entertaining. Very, very entertaining races. And I don't think that'll be any different. You got a lot of hungry drivers out there looking for that big win at Daytona. Venturini, they're going to be tough to beat as usual. But they won't have Corey Heim. Jesse Love, Jesse Love will be out there. I think, with Amber and Tony, you could say that, Jesse's only teammate out there really is Gus Dean. So will Venturini be once again the class of the field at Daytona this year? Honestly, early predictions for Daytona, I don't see them winning. I really don't. I think Jesse is too much of a rookie. And that's not taking anything away from his drafting talent, but going to Daytona for the very first time, even in an elite car like Venturini, man, you're at a disadvantage. You got all these other ARCA guys who have a lot of experience. And even a Gus Dean who's had years and years of truck racing, ARCA racing under his belt at play tracks. My early guess for the Daytona ARCA race is actually Gus Dean to win. I don't actually see Jesse Love winning. But you never know. Last year, they kind of played some team orders, so we'll have to see what Venturini does this year at ARCA race. But either way, it's going to be fun. Next week, we'll have our little review show, which, like I said, won't really be much, just kind of going over the results of the Daytona Test and any more ARCA news that comes out. So I'm sorry tonight's ARCA podcast wasn't exactly too long. We're only just shy of 31 minutes, but like I said, we were just kind of previewing the entry list for the Daytona Test and talking over some ARCA news. And that's pretty much it, guys. I wish I had more for you guys tonight, but obviously we're not in the full-time season yet. Once we get into the full-time season, another month, we'll have way more content. We'll be here way longer for you guys because I know how much you guys enjoy the show. And again, I appreciate your guys' continued support. But yep, it's 7:30 and I'm going to get out your guys' hairs. Just know, again, I appreciate your continued support. And remember, once we hit 1,000, we are giving away. We got 5 prizes to give away, ranging from rare little cars to some NASCAR Authentics to even a 124 scale Tony Stewart car. So when we get to 1,000, man, that big number 1,000, we will be doing that giveaway. So like and subscribe to the channel. That is all you guys have to do. That is all you guys have to do. Till then, I appreciate your guys' support of the podcast. Again, follow me on social media if you guys want to. It's in the link. Check out racingexperts.com, and I will see you guys all here next week. So till next time, I've been Colby Evans, starting Park Car, and I'm signing off. So long, guys.